Today we're going to be making Bobcat boxes. This one is made out of 1x12, but today we're going to be using 3/4 inch plywood. Now the difference between the 1x12s and 3/4 inch plywood is when I made them with the 1x12s, I have rabbet joints cut into them. As you can see, rabbet joints cut 3/8 into the top piece. So the difference is when I make them out of the 3/4 inch plywood, it's just going to be a butt joint. So the side wall is going to be 10 3/8. Top and bottom is going to be 11 1/4. So to cut them, I just lay them out on top of some 2x3s on the floor, 2x4s, whatever works. I just lay the plywood down flat, line it up nice and straight. I already have some pieces cut. I have lines, I snap lines, then I just ripped it with a big skill saw right there. It allows me a couple more pieces than the little guy. I'll throw a screw in on each side just to help keep the pieces together so they don't bind. And then after you cut the top pieces, then your saw blade should leave a kerf in the bottom piece. And just run the saw over again and should be able to get some pieces out of it. So this is how I go about cutting the notches for the Conibear springs. I'm just drilling a hole, and then I'm going to take a bandsaw and I cut a hole, or I cut the entire slot with a bandsaw after. So I got a jig set up, I got my table locked in place, I got my height adjusted accordingly. Whenever I'm making stuff like this, I always get jigs set up, just makes operation go faster. So let's get to do some drilling. This is how I cut the sides where the springs for the Conibear goes. I already have the hole drilled. Now all I gotta do is just rip it a little bit on the bandsaw. Don't need a guide, don't need any markings, just kind of eyeball it. To do the top cover, I do it essentially the same exact way as with the sides, or not top cover, but the top of the box. Except the only difference is it's not centered. It's off to the side, off to the other side. So you drill one hole, and all you do is just flip it over and drill the other hole. And then we'll take a jigsaw and we'll cut that out with the jigsaw. So then to finish the hole in the cover, I just use a jigsaw. Just like that. So then I take a router to this inside handle here. I take a router to that to round it over just so it's a little nicer on my hands when I'm carrying it. So this is how I go about cutting the slope on the boxes or the angle on the box. I just have a simple sled set up on top of a table saw with a jig screwed onto it. It's pretty simple. I just have an angle piece that's cut off from one of the pieces that gets the angle pitched over. Then I just have a stop here, make a cut, flip it, put it back up to the board, cut it, then it's done. Just keep chucking the pieces off to the side. It ends up going fairly fast. We'll show you how it goes here. So we got the boxes assembled. It's pretty basic. On this one I got 3 screws, one on each end and one in the middle. What I did on majority of them was then 5, then one in the middle of each. But I was running short on screws in the last 5 boxes, so I cut it down to 3 just to get them all built. Had about 4 screws left. The screws that I use, 1 5/8 T25 deck screws. That way they don't rust, cause future problems. And right now I'm cutting the mesh for the back. And this goes on the back and that just gets air stapled on there. I cut the mesh just with the hand shears. You can use a grinder if you want, but I'm old fashioned. Sometimes I like cutting by hand. So to fasten the mesh on the back, I just use an 18 gauge narrow crown stapler. Doesn't take much, one on each corner, one in the middle on each side. There we go. And then on top, I like to put my trap tag on top as well. That way, for some reason someone has to see the tag, they don't have to mess with the trap, don't have to mess with my cable. It's just right there, information out on the public. Then also if my tag somehow falls off one of my cables, well, it's right there too, it's just backup. So on traps that I use with the boxes, I use 220s with wood pans. I make the wood pans. You can purchase them through some trapping supply dealers. You can use 160s as well with this box. You couldn't use a 150 or a 155. The box would be a little bit too big for that. To tie off the trap, I just use my regular body grip extension cables. Snap clip on one end with a number 9 barrel swivel, adjustable loop on the other end. Tie off to stakes, tie off to trees, whatever works. Fence staple to a tree if you want. I just take that, hook it on the spring, and then away we go. I gotta tie it off, away we go. Bait just goes in the back of the box. Lure, if you want to put lure back there. This is a trap or a set that you have to be very conscious of where you put it. It is a lethal set. It will kill whatever puts its head inside of it, whether it's a raccoon, a weasel, a cat, a dog. Be very conscious where you set it, because those domestic instances, those are black eye trapping that do get our rights taken away all the time in separate states. It's not as big of an issue as it used to be. We've become a lot more conscious, but it doesn't hurt to keep being conscious. They're a wonderful tool in very specific circumstances. Areas where you're not going to be running into domestics or any incidental catches. But if you're in instances where you're not going to be running into those, like I said, they're a wonderful tool for the job. Just be very conscious that you are in one of those good circumstances to use them. So if you have any questions on the boxes or any other things, feel free to fire away. I'm more than willing to answer. Thanks for watching.